Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
The soft parade continues in unceasing melody, unencumbered by the lunacy of our so-called civilized ways. And though we consider ourselves masters of domain, the overlords of concrete jungle and apex predator, we reside in artificial constructs separate from the keen happening of world in flux. The real overseers of dungeon have masterminded machination, bondage so subtle the masses have no realization that we are being played. Regarded as little more than cattle fattened for slaughter. In our minds, we believe ourselves free to choose activity, assume venture, role which would best assert our desire and interest. And yet, in a world controlled from top down, only the eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid really knows what's going on. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to join me this evening as we dig deep, introspect into the strange nature of the Matrix and this machination of as far as the prison system and the pattern which has been established before even our birth into this world, and how we are all assimilated as young children, and that even our parents and our grandparents had no idea that they were prisoners to this system, had no idea that all of what they thought they knew as freedom and the liberties, the grand liberties of life and choice and opportunity and the privilege of being here as part of the great mystery, how all of that had been circumvented in a way to indoctrinate us into being good taxpayers and good servants to the elitists, these royal families and the prime ministers and presidents and political representatives and all those that have been duty bound, some of them since they were children, have been raised to be part of the control matrix. And so this evening we're going to look a little bit deeper into that because as you know, since most of you are very up to date with current events and with what's going on in the world, we had just a couple days ago 1,000-point drop on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And hello everybody and welcome Darlome and Monkey and Zippy and Change Me and Chris and Karen and Thunderbird and Jer Bear and Shannon and Link and Gib, Footsie, Mr. Mojo, Sky, Cortec, Hazard, Lana, all those that I don't see in the immediate scroll. Daku, good to see all of you, and thank you for joining us this evening. And many of you are very well researched and very well studied and know what I'm talking about. But my hope is to bring some points to light this evening, which would shock even you. And I know for those that are just now awakening to the Matrix, to the New World Order, and to how all of it ties into this particular financial crash, because it's been long in orchestration. And we've been watching it for years like a slow unfolding disaster. Um, Almost like watching New Orleans, the levees being bombed and the city being flooded and the water just rushing in slow cascade. Well, the water rushed in at really quick pace, but it looked like it was just slowly pouring in until it filled the city and drowned people, those that had climbed up into the attics. Many of them were, forced to watch the slow oncoming onslaught of their demise, and how so very sad. And it's the same thing for what we are witness to as far as America and the, what is it, $23 trillion in debt now? I mean, it just keeps compounding by the second. I forget exactly. I mean, it's an astronomical amount that is being added every second to the debt. I mean, it's so beyond comprehension that, I mean, how can you even keep up with the interest that is being incurred? And the politicians that are in office, that, they're not elected officials, even though it seems like we still have the right to vote, or that we still can select and choose to put into office whom we want. I mean, that's all an illusion. The fact that so many presidents have been blood related to one another is confirmation of that. And it's been a long time that we've really had choice, especially since, the electronic voting machines and no confirmation um, of a paper trail, those kind of things. And so it's been a long time that we've had any true semblance of being able to make decisions along those lines. Now they just basically give us the illusion of choice and um, appease us that, we matter, and that we have a part to play within the whole scheme of America as republic. And all of that is long past, and those dreams were killed long ago by those that have been sold out to the shadow government and the rulers, Oz behind the mask, the powers, the principalities, these rulers of darkness that truly do subjugate America in ways that we don't fully understand. And there are a lot of people awakening to these particulars, but still, the as far as the masses, most are quietly snoring away, or are too busy with whatever it is that piques their interest to even notice. I mean, there's no care why the American people hadn't demanded their representatives balance a budget and force government to be economically sound is just beyond me. I mean, there's no business in the world which can run such levels of debt and maintain solvency. I mean, as far as maintain, not go solvent, maintain being able to um, keep everything going. And so, why should we expect anything different? And so, I'm going to talk about some of the protocols that are found in the Learned Elders of Zion. I'll talk about the story, um, the background of who those elders are, as well as how we came to be in possession of them, because all of that is very interesting. And for those that don't know, because again, there are so many that are awakening, and there are so many people that are trying to understand, that are seeking out answer that they can't get from their um, hello hippie chick, from their, whoever that they look to for answers. What's up, Mr. Rowe? Good to see you, brother. Um, and so these are things that we should all be aware of. These are things that are relevant to the discourse, relevant to understanding where we are now. Let me read that. Hippie Check just interesting made an interesting comment in the chat room here. She says, Winston Straught, whoever he is, just announced on the Alexander Meadows show that there is a new republic in place, and he thinks that will be announced at the fall equinox. He said we would be getting our constitution back, and it's not a military coup. He claims it is all in place, and we have enough gold to go gold backed. Well, I would absolutely hope so, hippie chick. I mean, that sounds really awesome. But if it's up to our political representative, and I'm one of those that absolutely does not believe Fort Knox is full, and I don't know where this particular gold is that he's talking about, but it would be interesting. I would. Do you have a link where we can get more detail? But it sounds like a dream to me, because according to the protocols, they are not trying to save America in any way. In fact, the plan is to destroy the current economic and financial system, and to bring, even though the system that'll be brought out from it um, will actually be not funny money, not a fiat currency in any way, but that it has to be absolutely backed by something real. Otherwise, nobody's going to want to recognize it, and countries will just continue to use their own, and they want to unify the world in a global currency, a one world order, a one world religion, one people, that's the plan, because it's under the guise of the New World Order. This is has to be in place in order for the Antichrist to come and reign over it. And I know a lot of the listeners here on Revolution Radio do not buy into or believe in the prophetic word and the biblical scriptures, but I absolutely do, and they are being fulfilled. You know, the things written thousands of years in advance, even the vision of Daniel, with the statue of gold and silver and iron and bronze, and the feet of iron and miry clay, and I mean, the way that it has aligned with those kingdoms that had come to power, Media, Persia, and Babylon, and Greece and Rome. Things are being fulfilled according to how they were written thousands of years ago, and so that should give you some idea as to the predictability that is contained within the Gospels for understanding current events. Because Enoch wrote about this generation. In the book of Enoch, he wrote about that what he was writing was for a remote generation, not those that were alive and living with him at that particular time. And that much of what is written and has been conceived within the gospel was written for the last generation, what is the final generation, that it speaks about the end of days. And all of that came about with the recreation of Israel in 1948, and that we are that generation. That Yeshua said that those that are alive when this event happens would be the generation that would be alive when things, when all these things are fulfilled. All right, let me read. Hippie Chick says, I hear you, Zen. I think this is true, that it does not mean that they have given up on the New World Order playbook with the emergence of the Antichrist. Yeah, I mean, it could be just, one of their ways of bringing about the New World Order. Who knows? It's an interesting concept, and we'll see how it plays out. But it certainly seems like the dominoes are falling. That with the China slowdown and how they used the China as being because it overtook America as the world's leading economy, how they used that as an engine for global growth. And how, I don't know if you guys, the listeners in the audience, are aware of this, but the Chinese government, they were building entire cities, the infrastructure for entire cities where there was not one inhabitant living within them, just to drive the global economy. And they knew that at some point all of that growth was going to slow down, and that when it did, that it would collapse the globalization process, which we are seeing that played out. And so we're gonna read some of that. I'm gonna share some of that, read some of that, and show you, not a lot. I am gonna read some. going to be making commentary as we study and look into these things. Because again, those that are new to these concepts, that don't understand the crisis, how it's manufactured, and how things um, like the global financial collapse, how those kind of things are engineered hundreds of years in advance. Like the protocols were supposedly found in the late 1800s. And the same thing applies to Albert Pike's letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, speaking about um, the need to create 3 global wars as a way to foment the acceptance of the different nations, the acceptance of a one world order. Hippie Chick says to watch out for fall equinox, September 23rd. It's interesting that that also aligns with the Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Trumpets, and that and the Day of Atonement, all of those occur in September, and that this is also the final blood red moon. The tetrad moons occur during that time as well, and the Jubilee begins. And for those that don't know what the Jubilee is, it's during ancient Hebrew times, it was a time when all debts were forgiven and possessions went back to their rightful owners, and even the land was given a break, given a rest. It was allowed to grow fallow, meaning grow wild, and all of the fruit was left for the poor and for travelers, wanderers that had come through the land. And for that year, there was no working the land. Things were just allowed to grow as they would. And I believe also, I'm not exactly sure on this, but there's Jonathan Cahn has been teaching about the Shemitah, and supposedly that also lines up with this financial collapse, and that many people have been speaking about September as a time for a lot of things to happen. That because of the Jubilee, because of the blood red moons, the tetrad moons, that these things have been lined up for that particular part of this year. And I just heard an interview, and I'll see if I can find it, by this lady who's been a prophetess. She's been receiving visions since she was 7 years old, and the Most High has been warning her about this time now, and that she should stock up and buy a bunch of food in preparation for this time, more than what she would need for just her and her family, and that she is supposed to have abundance enough to share with those that would be needing. Hippie Chick also says that the Pope is going to be making an announcement. She says here, so I'm assuming that's in the United States, and whether it's on the 23rd or 25th, I'm not positive. But also that the blood moon will occur on the 28th. And so a lot of signs, that whole jade helm thing is still in play. Um, Link says that the Pope and the president are making an appearance together September 23rd. Interesting that that's also on the equinox. So yeah, very very interesting. And for those that are not aware of, as far as God's calendar, the seasons change on the solstices and the equinoxes. Like spring begins on the vernal equinox, summer begins on the solstice, fall begins on the autumnal equinox, which is coming up on the 23rd, and the winter begins on the winter solstice. So, I can see why they would select that particular day for some kind of unfolding. And so when we come back from break, I'm going to share some of these passages and show you how they have, written way back in the 1800s, how they have planned for this event for a very long time, for hundreds of years, and how they even state in the text themselves that it would take longer than 100 years to play out. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Interesting times that we live in, most certainly. And if indeed, this is the beginning of all of the things that they have wanted to occur, um, these are definitely going to be trying times. And so I pray that all of us will utilize what time we have before things even get worse than what they already are, uh, to do what we can to, at least get food together or emergency supplies or medical kit. And I know that a lot of people are suffering to not have the financial capacity to, in any way, to, purchase dehydrated food or anything of that nature. Um, and I'm not saying to put yourself out. Definitely don't go into financial debt trying to accomplish preparations in this way. Just do what you can, with whatever it is, to um, maybe not go to the movies once, or maybe not go out to eat at that fancy restaurant once and use that. I mean, there's ways for people to try to at least create somewhat of a reserve, even for supplies for a couple months, even if it's just for a week. Like in the case of Katrina, when the city was flooded, and then the all of the shells were cleared in a matter of hours, and nothing got back into the city for what, several weeks at least. Um, just for your family's sake, and for your own peace of mind, maybe just stock up on some canned goods, some extra cans of tuna. I mean, and just whatever you can accomplish. I mean, knowing that if it's gonna be in a month that there's some kind of distress, um, and you didn't use this 1 month to actually prepare, when you had chance, had opportunity, I mean, you you'll be kicking yourself. I'm gonna try to find that interview real quick, the link to it of that woman, and it was Rick Wiles, I believe, who interviewed this lady on True News, and the interview I found to be really something that people should hear. And I pray um, that she is wrong, everybody is wrong, the protocols are wrong, and that there will be no crisis, and none of us have anything to worry about, and that things will continue on, even though we know that the debt cannot continue on. At some point, we're going to get cut off, and things will be forced to change, but that things are allowed to continue in the way that they are, um, in order to set the premise, the foundation for those things which are coming and which were planned. And so we'll get to that. I just wanted to see if I could find this really quickly. If not, then maybe I'll be able to locate it during the next break. Definitely a relevant. I'd like to share the link with you, and for those that have time after the show to listen to it, I think it would bless your lives. But I'm not able to locate it. And so I'm just going to continue on. Let me just go ahead and go into, and the reason I um, had spoken about in the description of what I was going to talk about this evening, um, the great serpent of Zion, is because that's what the elders of this particular text, they call it. They're, basically taking over and infiltrating all the governments of the world. They call it the great serpent of Zion themselves. And so it will give you insight in describing this particular serpent and their agenda, and the elders, the hidden hand behind it. It'll give you insight just by reading the description of this. It'll give you, those of you that are familiar, and those of you that are just now learning, it'll give you some insight into this. And then after I share this, I'll read some of the commentary in the chat room, because there seems to be a lot of discussion. And, again, I think that you are very wise as students of current events. I probably should do that first before the scroll disappears, and so let me do that. Some of the things that are being said. Hippie Chick has a lot of good information here, so let me read her comments along with some of the others. One other thing I read today, which was disturbing, is William Mount said North Korea was going to bomb 100 miles southeast of Houston, Texas, and that it would be a very devastating blast. Sorry, I can't post links. That's William Mount on YouTube. People can look him up for themselves. And Alexander Meadows' site is galactic connection on YouTube. So those that are interested in more of what she has disclosed here in the chat room, you can look to that. And all right, and then for those that have access to the chat room, there are people posting links as well too. So, but again, you can just search on YouTube William Mount and Alexander Meadows Galactic Connections, and you'll be able to find this information. All right, so let me go ahead and go into this because I know we'll run out of time really fast because this show always passes by so very quickly. And also another thing that I wanted to bring up this evening was how how this hidden hand, how they're connected to something that is found in Scripture, and that these people are called the Kenites, the sons of Cain, the children of Cain, whom Christ speaks of them as the synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not, in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. And if we get time, the focus will be on the protocols, but if we get time, I'll share just a couple of biblical passages which expose who these people are so that you can get a better understanding and better idea. All right, continuing. Who are the elders? I should start with this first. This is a secret which has not been revealed. They are the hidden hand. They are not, well, I'm actually skipped that part, but here's a quote. I can't even pronounce this guy's name. Al-Leheminir Illiteraciat Gesellschaft has thrown a little light on the subject, and doubtless he was in possession of their names, being in all likelihood one of the chief leaders himself, writing in the, I guess he was German, Wiener Freie Press, which is, I guess is German for free press, December 24th, 1912, he said that, quote, 300 men, each of whom knows all the others, govern the fate of the European continent, and they elect their successors from their entourage. In the year 1844, on the eve of the Jewish Revolution of 1848, Benjamin Disraeli, whose real name was Israel, and who was a damned or baptized Jew, published his novel Koningsby, in which occurs this ominous passage. The world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And he went on to show that these personages were all Jews. Now, I want to make this statement here that I'm in no way against a particular people or a particular race or a particular gender. That I know that Lucifer works through all peoples, all minorities, all classes, all races, all colors, and that he does so in order to subvert and to subject all peoples and to rule over and gain control, authority over all of them. And that this has been the modus operandi, the sons of Cain, their ability and the way that they infiltrate and take over. It's the same thing as those particular biblical passages that I'm referring to. Um, in Joshua 9, it speaks of a group of people that, in order to get Joshua to spare them, and um, when they were when he was going through Canaan and killing all of the giants and all of the sons of Anak, and was taking the land, which had been promised to his ancestor Abraham. These particular people acted like they were of a far off country, and um, he allowed them to become servants to the scribes and the temple priests. And eventually, these particular people ended up taking over the scribes and the temple positions. And, by the time of Christ, they were known as the scribes and the Pharisees. And that's why Yeshua called them um, of their father the devil, and that they were the that they were those that had conspired to murder him and that had worked to accomplish his death. And so, anyways, if I get time, I'll go into that in more detail, but I want to cover this fully first. Now that providence has brought to light of day these secret protocols, all men may clearly see the hidden personages specified Disraeli at work behind the scenes of all the governments. This revelation entails on all peoples the grave responsibility of examining and revising off on their attitude towards the race and nation which boasts of its survival over all empires. And for those that excuse me, have never read the protocols, don't, have never looked into them, they are basically a blueprint for establishing and dominating the world, infiltrating all of the governments and subverting them, and putting into place people that would represent the Freemasonic secret societies, because it's through those groups, these secret societies, that they were able to accomplish this as deed. And Albert Pike, he was the Scottish Rite, the Grand Master of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Even though he was a Civil War general, he was a high-level Freemason and knew the inner workings of this hidden hand. All right, let me continue. According to the records of secret Jewish Zionism, Solomon, going back to King Solomon, who lived 1,000 years before Christ, was the son of David. Solomon and other Jewish learned men already in 929 BC thought out a scheme and theory for a peaceful conquest of the whole universe by Zion. Quote, as history developed, this scheme was worked out in detail and completed by men who were subsequently initiated in this question. These learned men decided by peaceful means to conquer the world for Zion with the slyness of the symbolic snake, whose head was to represent those who have been initiated into the plans of the Jewish administration, and the body of the snake to represent the Jewish people. The administration was always kept secret, even from the Jewish nation itself. As the snake penetrated into the hearts of the nations which it encountered, it undermined and devoured all the non-Jewish power of these states. It is foretold that the snake has still to finish its work, strictly adhering to the designed plan until the course which it has to run is closed by the return of its head to Zion, and until by this means the snake has completed its round of Europe and has encircled it, and until by dint of enchaining Europe it has encompassed the whole world. This it is to accomplish by using every endeavor to subdue the other countries by an economical conquest. The return of the head of the snake to Zion can only be accomplished after the power of all the sovereigns of Europe has been laid low. That is to say, when by means of economic crises and wholesale destruction effected everywhere, there shall have been brought about a spiritual demoralization and a moral corruption, chiefly with the assistance of Jewish women masquerading as French, Italian, etc. These are the surest spreaders of licentiousness into the lives of the leading men at the heads of nations. Isn't it interesting that they know the weakness and they are going to utilize the weakness of even the most powerful men in the world, their sexual lusts and appetites. That even, it's the one thing that causes so many pastors and preachers and ministers to fall, that they would be holy in every other way, but when it comes to the lusts of the heart and the carnal needs of the flesh, they are open to giving themselves up to whatever experience they can gain access to and accomplish. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Studio B Revolution Radio. And we come to you every Wednesday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. All right. First, I do want to let everybody know that Revolution Radio is the largest listener-supported, commercial-free, and corporate-free entity as far as radio networks on the internet and in the world, and that we have a wide variety of hosts that come to you 24/7 on both Studios A and Studio B, and that we have just a wide array of opinions, and that the hosts cover topics, anything that you can think of, we cover in some way, and from a variety, as far as whether you are interested in conspiracy or the prophetic word or the ancient mysteries or New Age mysticism, whatever. We've got a wide range of hosts covering all topics in all ways and all manners. And so because we are corporate free and we are supported by the listening audience, we do need your financial support, whatever you can spare, and that there are various items which are available as barter for your support. And so if those of you, because a lot of you are just willing to donate straight up without need for some kind of reward or some kind of something in return. And for that, we greatly appreciate you and your donation. But for those that would like something in return for their pledge, that there are a lot of different items, and even you can purchase access to the archives and be able to download, excuse me, in MP3 form, all the shows that have been done by the various hosts going back for a very long time. Possibly for some, even for their entire radio career here on Revolution Radio. And so that in itself is well worth $5 a month, which is all it costs to gain access. Set up your own password, your own login name, and you're good to go. You can download these and share them with whomever you wish. Upload them to your iPod, burn them to a disk, listen to them as you drive to work. I mean, it's a great way to be able to listen to a bunch of hosts that you might not otherwise be able to catch. Those that come on at a time when you're not listening in or tuning in to the network. It'll give you a chance to, check them out and see what they're about. And so set it up if you can. Go to freedomslips.com and click on the donate button. And God bless those of you. Know that we appreciate you for doing so. All right. I want to read really quick, because I know a lot of people also believe that the protocols are fake or forgery, and that there have been efforts put forth in order to discredit them as 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 authentic. When, in my opinion, the proof is their precision, and how it is that those things that were written within them, how history has brought those things to light. And they're prophetic. And if they're prophetic and they're precise in that manner, then there's got to be something to them, no matter how many people believe they're forgeries. Because what other forgeries do you know? A lot of people believe the Bible's a forgery, and that the writings that are contained within were written by, men, thousands and hundreds of years ago, whatever it is that they choose to believe. But the fact is that the texts are absolutely prophetic, and that the things that have been written within them thousands of years ago have come to pass according to history and the unfoldment of time. And it's the same thing with these particular protocols. Whether you believe they're authentic or not, the content absolutely aligns with the way that the New World Order has unfolded, and the way that civil liberties, the freedom of the press, governments have been subjected, this whole situation with the financial crisis, how all of that has been established and how it's all being crashed around us. All of that is contained within the protocols as well. And so let me read something on how they were discovered. In 1785, an Illuminati courier was struck by lightning while traveling on horseback from Frankfurt to Paris carrying secret documents. The documents originated with the Zionist members of the Bavarian Illuminati in Germany and were addressed to the Grand Master of the Grand Orient Masons in Paris. The documents fell into the hands of the local police, who turned them over to the Bavarian government. The authorities ordered a police raid on the Illuminati headquarters, where they found additional evidence of a world revolutionary movement. The Zionist conspirators went underground and took refuge in the lodges of Freemasonry. Below, I'm not going to read that, but there's 24 protocols. And so the ones that I'm interested in, the ones that I'm going to talk about, I have highlighted, but I'm going to finish this whole thing on the symbolic snake. And then I'll read from some of the protocols. Because again, it's interesting in that they cite themselves how these things have been written for a time far in the future. Not like the Book of Enoch, which was written thousands of years in advance, but 100 years in advance. In as far as this particular text, which even if it was 10 years in advance, I mean that is still prophetic. All right, and so a map of the course of the symbolic snake is shown as follows. Its first stage in Europe was in 429 BC in Greece, where about the time of Pericles, the snake first started eating into the power of that country. The second stage was in Rome in the time of Augustus, about 69 BC. The third in Madrid in the time of Charles V in AD 1552. The fourth in Paris about 1790, in the time of Louis XVI. The fifth in London from 1814 onwards, after the downfall of Napoleon. The sixth in Berlin in 1871, after the Franco-Prussian War. The seventh in St. Petersburg, over which is drawn the head of the snake, under the date of 1881. And remember, it was around that time that these protocols were discovered, and it was against the Russian aristocracy that the Illuminati Masons had their focus. Because Russia was one of the last countries to fall to their schemes. And remember how in the War of Independence, the Russians, the Tsar sent Russian boats to support American independence? Well, that was one of the reasons why they focused on destroying the monarchy, and while the aristocratic family there in Russia was murdered outright by the Bolsheviks, and how the Bolshevik Revolution was also funded by New York, as far as the financial arm of the Illuminists. All right, continuing. This snake is now being drawn through the Americas and in the United States of America. It has been partially identified as the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. And for those that don't know, those two groups are secret societies, openly public secret societies, whereby the representatives, political and um, different individuals, they join and they have their marching orders for the establishment of world government, and they have been for a long time working against the interests of America and the people of America to subvert and to subject and to covertly destroy America from within. All right. Now I'm going to go into, and I probably won't be able to get to those biblical scriptures that I wanted to read about. But if you're interested in what I talked about with Joshua sparing these Kenites, known as the Rechabites, also the link to the Rechabites, you can find mention of them in Chronicles 2, verse 55, where it says, "And the families of the scribes which dwelt at Jabez," and also Joshua 9, the whole chapter. All right. Let me go ahead and go into, I'm going to read a few quick passages just to show how things were set up. Even with the opening phrase in Protocols number 1, it says, "Putting aside fine phrases, we shall speak of the significance of each thought. By comparison and deductions, we shall throw light upon surrounding facts. What I'm about to set forth then is our system from the 2 points of view, that of ourselves and that of the Goyim. It must be noted that men with bad instincts are more in number than the good, and therefore the best results in governing them are attained by violence and terrorization, and not by academic discussions. Every man aims at power. Everyone would like to become a dictator. If only he could, and rare indeed are the men who would not be willing to sacrifice the welfare of all for the sake of securing their own." All right, I'm going to skip to, I believe it's number 4. No, actually, it's protocol number 6, just the first passage and a couple others, and then we'll move on to another passage. I'm just skipping to where there's reference of a day in the future where they would destroy or collapse the financial system in order to bring about this one world order. In protocol number 6, the opening verse, it says, "We shall soon begin to establish huge monopolies, reservoirs of colossal riches, upon which even large fortunes of the Goyim," and the Goyim are, everybody that's not of these learned elders, the Jews that are aligned to the learned elders, what Christ said as the synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not. So basically the Kenites, the children of Cain, the bloodline and lineage of the serpent. Large fortunes of the Goyim will depend to such an extent that they will go to the bottom together with the credit of the states on the day after the political smash. And so there, political smash, they're talking about the crash of the financial system. All right, let me skip again. Protocol number 7, the first line there says, "The intensification of armaments, the increase of police forces are all essential for the completion of the aforementioned plans." And martial law, the establishment of police forces which would not have a problem shooting upon the civilians of a country. That's why they bring in these foreign troops. All of this has been tried and tested in other countries. They know exactly what they are doing and how to do it. Again, which makes these protocols of such interest. All right, another one. In Protocol 10, where verse 3 and 4, where it says, our goal, world power. We count upon attracting all nations to the task of erecting the new fundamental structure, the project for which has been drawn up by us. This is why, before everything, it is indispensable for us to arm ourselves and to store up in ourselves that absolutely reckless audacity and irresistible might of the Spirit, which in the person of our active workers will break down all hindrances on our way. When we have accomplished our coup d'etat, that's another word that they use for the financial smash, and the rise of the New World Order. When we have accomplished our coup d'etat, we shall say then to the various peoples, everything has gone terribly badly, all have been worn out with suffering. We are destroying the causes of your torment. Nationalities, frontiers, differences of coinages. You are at liberty, of course, to pronounce sentence upon us, but can it possibly be a just one if it is confirmed by you before you make any trial of what we are offering you? Then will the mob exalt us and bear us up in their hands in a unanimous triumph of hopes and expectations. Voting which we have made the instrument which we will set us on the throne of the world by, teaching even the very smallest units of members of this human race to vote by means of meetings and agreements by groups, will then have served its purposes and will play its part, and then for the last time by a unanimity of desire to make close acquaintance with us before condemning us. And so basically they create voting, they manage and control it, and the whole coup d'etat that they're talking about, the rise of the New World Order, they are bringing order out of chaos in order the problem reaction solution. It's the same modus operandi that they've always utilized. They create the pretext for which they give us the answer for, and then they trick us into asking them exactly what they want us to ask for. I mean, it's ingenious, really, if you really think about it and consider it. If it wasn't so diabolical and so sinister and so evil at the core, it would really be ingenious. All right, we're almost to the next break. I think I can bring up one more. In the same protocol, just really one line that I want to read in verse 18 under "We shall destroy." It says, "Away with them and give us one king over all the earth who will unite us and annihilate the causes of disorders, frontiers, nationalities, religions, state debts, who will give us peace and quiet with which we cannot find under our rulers and representatives." Can you say the Antichrist? That's where all of this is going. The whole thing with creating the pretext to bring order out of chaos It is for the establishment and rise of the New World Order, but after that comes the reign of the Antichrist and what the Bible talks about as the tribulation, which are the most trying of times. Also, we're facing the third global war as laid out by Albert Pike. All of that is yet to happen. He already predicted the first two. He actually predicted all three, but the third one has yet to happen. In 1871, when he sent forth his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, he spoke about the need to foment these three global wars by the agents of the Freemasons, as well as the Italian mafia. And, that lets you know how much power they have, how much control and authority they impose upon the world in order to be able to create that. We'll be right back for final segment. All right. Welcome back, everybody, for final segment. Um, we cover a couple other passages. I wanted to finish that one that I was reading from verse 19. It says this. But you yourselves perfectly well know, he's speaking again to the Freemasons, those that are privy to the inner workings of this whole agenda. But you yourselves perfectly well know that to produce the possibility of the expression of such wishes by all the nations, it is indispensable to trouble all countries, the people's relations with their governments, so as to utterly exhaust humanity with dissension, hatred, struggle, envy, and even by the use of torture, by starvation, and by the inoculation of diseases, by want, so that the Goyim see no other issue than to take refuge in our complete sovereignty in money and in all else. Um, Hippie Chick said in the chat room, I think they're wrong in their assumption that we're going to exalt them, meaning, the masses, the public, we as the people. And I agree. Um, I absolutely believe you're right, Hippie Chick, because I personally am going to do everything I can, and I'm hoping you will do the same, everything I can to make people aware of this agenda and of this hidden hand, these, those who say they are Jews but are not, the synagogue of Satan, the bloodline of Cain, these Kenites, the seed of the serpent, the tares among us, the bad figs of Jeremiah 24, the goats. I believe it's Matthew 7. But anyways, all throughout the scripture, it describes these people and how they have been, for the longest time, planning the destruction of these sons of Adam in order to secure and bring forth the one world order so that they can then introduce to the world what Albert Pike calls the pure doctrine of Lucifer, which will accompany the rise to power and the reign of the Antichrist. Let me pull up exactly what he said, because this is interesting. In his description of the three global wars, where Albert Pike talks about the need to bring the political Zionists against the Islamic world and then, have Christianity side with Zionism, and have both of these forces wear each other out and become so disillusioned with Christianity that he says, let me just read that last sentence. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an idea, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. And so their plan is to have the communists, the atheists, the forces of Russia and China, and the Christian world, America, England, Israel, all of them, and also the Muslim countries siding um, with communism, with the atheists, have both in controlled opposition brought against each other and have them mutually destroy one another. That's the whole plan. And you can see how all of this is being set up by, the Muslim Spring, in the Middle East, and the controversy over Ukraine. I mean, the dominoes are in place. All they need is a catalyst. All right, let me continue with the protocols. We'll end with this particular protocol. It's 15, because this one also speaks of this coup d'etat, but also talks about their connections to Freemasonry. It's a very interesting protocol. I would absolutely read it in its entirety. Even if you don't want to read the rest of the protocols, read this one. Protocol number 15, first verse. When we at last definitely come into our kingdom, by the aid of coups d'etats prepared everywhere for one and the same day. So all of these events and all of these crushing, what they say, this political smash, they have prepared for the same day. Into our kingdom by the aid of coups d'etats prepared everywhere for one and the same day, after definitely acknowledged, we shall make it our task to see that against us such things as plots shall no longer exist. With this purpose we shall slay without mercy all who take arms to oppose our coming into our kingdom. Every kind of new institution of anything like a secret society will also be punished with death. Those of them which are now in existence are known to us, serve us, and have served us. We shall disband and send into exile to continents far removed from Europe. In this way we shall proceed with those Goy Masons who know too much. Such of these as we may for some reason spare will be kept in constant fear of exile. We shall promulgate a law making all former members of secret societies liable to exile from Europe as the center of rule. And so those of you that are part of this agenda, that are, these, what they call the Goy Masons, you're expendable. They're going to get rid of you. You're just helping them to accomplish their task, but once it's accomplished, you're chump change, you're fresh meat, you're, useless eater just like the rest of us. So don't be foolish into siding with them and helping them to bring on your own demise. How stupid are you? Even more stupid than what they call the useless eaters. All right. Just a few more paragraphs here. And then we'll end with commentary, and then I'll read some of the things that are being said in the chat room. Resolutions of our government will be final and without appeal. In the Goy societies in which we have planted and deeply rooted discord and Protestantism, the only possible way of restoring order is to employ merciless measures that prove the direct force of authority. No regard must be paid to the victims who fall. They suffer for the well-being of the future. The attainment of that well-being, even at the expense of sacrifices, is the duty of any kind of government that acknowledges as justification for its existence not only its privileges but its obligations. The principal guarantee of stability of rule is to confirm the aureole of power, and this aureole is attained only by such a majestic inflexibility of might as shall carry on its face the emblems of inviolability from mystical causes, from the choice of God. Such was, until recent times, the Russian autocracy, the one and only serious foe we had in the world, without counting the papacy. Bear in mind the example when Italy, drenched with blood, never touched a hair of the head of Sulla, who had poured forth the blood. All right, I'm going to skip to the next part, where it says secret societies. This is part 4. I'll read this and then we'll finish up with commentary. Meantime, however, until we come into our kingdom, we shall act in the contrary way. We shall create and multiply Freemasonic lodges in all the countries of the world, absorb into them all who may become or who are prominent in public activity. For these lodges we shall find our principal intelligence office and means of influence. All these lodges we shall bring under one central administration, known to us alone and all the others absolutely unknown, which will be composed of our learned elders. The lodges will have their representatives who will serve to screen the above-mentioned administration of Masonry, and from whom will issue the watchword and program. In these lodges we shall tie together the knot which binds together all revolutionary and liberal elements. Their composition will be made up of all strata of society. The most secret political plots will be known to us and fall under our guiding hands on the very day of their conception. Among the members of these lodges will be almost all the agents of international and national police, since their service is for us irreplaceable in the respect that the police is in a position not only to use its own particular measures with the insubordinate, but also to screen our activities and provide pretext for discontents. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. So basically, they're saying they're going to bring into their fold and include into all of their secret societies and covert workings those who hold prominent position. And we know that judges and police officers, doctors, lawyers, um, all of the police, even deputies, all of them have been made part of this framework, of this hidden hand, and that they are working in tangent together in order to manipulate even what the occurs in America with certain events, that they are fomenting distress and fomenting um, posing minorities against one another, and that they are allowing the police to crack down in brutal ways and actually murder citizens, and then allowing them to go free in order to set the precedents for the police as well as these citizens, that the police can do what they want, and that the judges and the justice system, that they are all own, and that they will support the rule, their impunitive rule, and their ability, capacity to do as they wish. And so this is what we're dealing with as world. This is what's coming. And I know so many, especially those of you that buy into the whole new age belief systems, that think we're, you know, suddenly going to aspire to human greatness, and that we're all going to achieve ascendancy, and that we're all going to just move in merrily together into the golden age, and that evil is just going to be somehow swept away. And I know so many believe and buy into that, and I would like to. I mean, I most certainly want that to be our future, but I know better from not only what the Illuminists write as agenda for themselves, but I know from the gospel that it says those times that are coming are the worst that have ever been. Let me see if I can find the actual quote of what I'm talking about. It's in Luke chapter 21. Let me see if I can find this real quick before the end of the show. This will be the perfect thing to end with. And believe me, I don't want anything bad to happen. I don't want my family, my children, myself, and you to have to endure or have to go through any of this madness. It's not what I want for world, but that's what's written for our future, for what's coming. All right, let me see here. And I pray that it doesn't. That, again, I pray that the things continue to go on as they have, and that there's no insanity on the horizon, and that the Illuminati do not succeed in what they are attempting to accomplish, and that the Most High can postpone the day of the Lord and the outpouring of the wrath of God on those that are not written into the book of life. But just a few passages. Verse 22 and verse 23. This isn't exactly the scripture that I want, but for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Let me find the passage that I'm talking about. Oh goodness. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. There's one last passage that I want to find, but if I don't, you get the point. We got 2 minutes remaining. Let me just go ahead and check the chat room, see if there's any commentary. Well, anyways, I hope that what I have said and what I've stated and what I've read from the protocols, that you get it, and that those of you that have never heard, never read, never studied these particular passages, this particular text, even though there has been so much put out that is trying to debunk it or to say that it's a hoax, look into it. See if it does not align with what's happened in the world and where we are today and what's going on with the whole, as far as the unfolding of the New World Order. Check and see if there's correlation. And if there is, maybe you should give it greater consideration. Hippie Chick says, well, they've got to exterminate the Canaanites, the Khazarian Jews, because if that does not happen, it will not be this all, it will be this all over again. It looks to me like this is it, the showdown. And I couldn't agree more, sister. I really think that all these signs are leading us to something happening here in, and I'm not a doom and gloom person. I don't even